What do I do if I have degenerative disc disease? If you're watching this video, it probably means that you have low back pain or sciatica and you've had an X-ray, CT scan, or MRI saying that you have degenerative disc disease. And that can be scary for a lot of people. But I'm here to tell you that finding out that you have degenerative disc disease doesn't have to mean a lifetime of low back pain. Follow along and I'll teach you what you can do to keep your back healthy and happy. Let's start out by explaining the anatomy of the lumbar spine. The lumbar spine is made up of 5 vertebrae stacked up on top of each other. The front part of the vertebrae is called the vertebral body, and in between each vertebral body is the intervertebral disc. For ease of communication, we call this the disc. However, this isn't the only joint between the vertebrae. There are also 2 facet joints at each level. In between the disc and the facet joints, there's a space called the intervertebral foramen. In plain English, this means the hole between the vertebrae. You'll also notice that there are some pieces of bone that stick out of the sides and the back of the vertebra. These are called the transverse processes and the spinous process, respectively. They are areas of attachment for muscles, tendons, and ligaments. Okay, now let's talk about the disc. The disc has 2 primary structures, the nucleus pulposus and the annulus fibrosus. The nucleus pulposus is the gel-like material in the middle of the disc. The annulus fibrosus, or annular fibers, are the fibers that wrap around the disc to contain the gel. The disc is often described as a jelly-filled donut to describe the relationship between the gel-like nucleus pulposus and the annular fibers that contain it. It's this structure that allows the spine to have such great range of motion. When we're young, the discs are well hydrated and the space between the vertebral bodies is well maintained. However, this hydration makes it more likely that the gel-like nucleus pulposus is going to push through the annular fibers. This is how a disc herniation occurs, and it's more likely to occur in our 20s and 30s than in our 50s and 60s because of the hydration status of the disc. But keep listening because I'll explain how those disc herniations that happened in your 20s or 30s can actually begin to affect you in your 50s and 60s and what you can do about it. Now, as we age, the disc begins to dehydrate. And this eventually happens to everyone, but it can be accelerated by a sedentary lifestyle, previous injury, being overweight, excessive alcohol consumption, and smoking. As the disc dehydrates, the disc height decreases and the space between the vertebral bodies becomes smaller. This creates a cascade of other changes. The facet joints now have more load placed on them, and over time, they begin to show signs of arthritis. This is called facet arthropathy, facet hypertrophy, or facet degeneration. The ligaments that used to be taut at the height of the disc when it was fully hydrated now become lax as the disc height decreases. Sometimes this can even cause the ligament to buckle. This most commonly happens to the ligamentum flavum that runs inside the spinal canal. And it's an important change because that thickening and/or buckling of the ligamentum flavum takes up space in the spinal canal, and that creates narrowing of that spinal canal. This is called lumbar spinal stenosis, and it can create nerve impingements and sciatica. Because those ligaments are no longer doing as good a job of stabilizing the spine as they used to, the body needs to find a new way to create stability, and it does this by creating bone spurs or osteophytes that grow out of the top and bottom of the vertebral body near the disc. Now, these can also create impingement if they create enough narrowing of the spinal canal and/or the intervertebral foramen. Now, to get back to those disc herniations and disc bulges from your 20s and 30s, they can be acutely painful when they first happen, but often they heal and do not produce pain for years. But they do take up space in that spinal canal or intervertebral foramen. And as the disc height decreases, the ligamentum flavum thickens and buckles, and osteophytes grow. The space for the nerves continues to become smaller and smaller and eventually pinches the nerve. If you've liked this video so far, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It would mean a lot. Thanks. Now that you've found out that you have degenerative disc disease, you're probably wondering what you can do about it. The first thing I need to say is that degenerative disc disease is not reversible. The findings from your X-ray, CT scan, or MRI will not go away, but your symptoms are very modifiable. So just because you have those imaging findings, it doesn't mean you're destined to a lifetime of pain. Here's what you can do. First, let's look at the contributing factors to degenerative disc disease: age, previous injury, sedentary lifestyle, being overweight, excessive alcohol consumption, and smoking. Now let's look at which ones you have control over. Unfortunately, there's no going back in time, so we can't change your age or any previous injuries to the disc. But you are in control of your activity level, nutrition, and smoking status, which relate to the risk factors of sedentary lifestyle, being overweight, excessive alcohol consumption, and smoking. All of these relate to the amount of inflammation present in your body. Here are my recommendations in no particular order. Stop smoking. Smoking creates chronic inflammation in the body, and that inflammation will increase your pain. Smoking also affects your body's ability to recover. Decrease your alcohol consumption or cut it out completely. Alcohol also increases inflammation in the body and has been shown to increase pain. And if you fall into an overweight or obese category, try to lose some weight. Carrying around additional weight is hard on your joints, and it also creates inflammation in your body. Now, this video isn't about the best ways to diet, but the key thing is to remember to create a caloric deficit. Essentially, you need to eat less calories than you burn, and you will lose weight. Whether it's a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, carnivore diet, vegan, or vegetarian, that's up to you. Choose the diet that you're most likely to stick to, because this isn't a quick fix. It's a lifelong plan. Then it comes down to movement. If your pain allows you to, you should lift weights and do some form of cardiovascular exercise. Again, you can choose whatever you're most likely to succeed with. That might be walking, running, biking, dancing, or swimming, whatever you prefer. Now, if you're not quite ready to do that, the first steps are to move your back through its pain-free range of motion every single day. These movements help to lubricate the joints and tell your nervous system that it's safe to move, because you're in control. For some people, their pain really limits their ability to be active, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way forever. This is about making slow and steady progress over time. Initial exercise might look like diaphragmatic breathing, cat-cows, and child's pose. Then you can increase the difficulty and/or duration of your exercises and work yourself up to lifting weights or cardiovascular exercises. I know low back pain can be frustrating, and at times it's easy to give up and just accept your pain for what it is. But you can take control of your pain, whether it's through movement, diet, or quitting smoking. Start small and focus on one change that you can commit to. Once that feels easy, add in another step and keep layering in more levels over time. It may seem small or insignificant at first, but trust me, down the road, you'll be thankful you made those changes. If you need help creating a plan specific to your situation, leave a comment below. I'd be happy to help.